They brought it to me in silence. No explanation, no ceremony. Just a man in a cassock sliding a heavy black box across the marble floor of the sanctum archivum. No markings, no key. The latch opened without resistance, like it wanted to be opened. And inside, it wasn't a book. Not really. Not by any definition I'd known, and I've catalogued hundreds of pre-Constantinian scrolls, fragments, apocryphal texts. This one was different. They called it Codex Sanguinum in the intake slip. Blood Codex. Though I later noticed the Latin script had been slashed through. Handwritten beside it, in shaking ink, was a single line. Nomen ius exscriptum non sit. Let his name not be written. That should have been enough. I should have closed the box right then, walked away. But I didn't. Because when the church gives you a second chance after exile, you don't question the weight of the pen they ask you to hold. I remember the first time I touched it. The surface of the cover wasn't leather, not really. It had pores, microscopic ones, smooth at first, but with the faint slickness of something that had once lived. The paper inside, not paper, thin, silken vellum, but damp at the edges, as if it breathed in humidity from the air. And then the writing. God forgive me, I thought it was a cipher, a code. No letters, no glyphs I could match, just jagged, thorn-like shapes that twisted differently each time I turned the page. I told myself I was hallucinating, that it was fatigue. I'd barely slept since being recalled to the archives. Too many regrets, too many nights spent watching the same dream where the altar burned and someone whispered my name backward. But no, I wasn't imagining it. The first night, I set it down and turned off the light. And I heard it breathing. Just once, a slow, deliberate exhale from the black box on the desk. I turned the lamp back on immediately, nothing. No movement, just the book, closed, but not still. I could feel its heat from across the room. I didn't sleep. I stared at it until morning. And when the sun rose, I opened it again like a fool. Page after page, the ink would twitch at the corners like spiders curling their legs. But one symbol stayed still, repeated 3 times on one page. I traced it, not with my finger, I knew better, but with my eyes. It pulsed behind my vision. I had to draw it down. I had to understand. The moment I sketched it in my notebook, my nose began to bleed. A thin trickle left nostril. I've never had that happen before, not from fatigue, not even when I worked underground in the catacombs. But this felt intentional, like something had cracked me open from the inside. I cleaned it up, lied to the guards about the mess, and locked the book away. But that night, I heard it again. The breathing was closer. Not from the desk, from beneath the bed. I didn't look, I wouldn't, I couldn't. Instead, I prayed. I said the Nicene Creed backward, a foolish superstition I picked up from a bishop in Cordoba who swore it repelled evil. It didn't work. I still heard the breath. But I kept reading. I told myself it was all in the name of understanding, that maybe the Codex wasn't evil, just misunderstood, misfiled by scared men centuries ago. What if it was a pre-Christian artifact? What if it contained the real story of Genesis, not the neutered version handed down by Constantine's councils? It was curiosity, but deeper down it was pride. I wanted to be the one to uncover it, to earn back my title, my position, my worth. The next morning, the page had changed. Where once there was a cluster of looping shapes, now there was a phrase in Latin. Clear as day, written across the top margin, like a heading burned into the skin of the page. Et vocabis illum per nomen vetus. And you shall call him by the old name. No one else had touched the book. I was sure of that. The archives are under lock, key, and round-the-clock surveillance. Yet there it was, new writing that hadn't been there the day before. So I said it. I spoke the name aloud. I don't remember why. Maybe I wanted to test it. Maybe I just needed to feel something, control something, anything in that moment. But the instant the syllables left my mouth, every candle in the archives guttered. The electric lights flickered, and somewhere deep below, I heard a door slam shut. A door I didn't know existed. Later that day, I asked Father Andre, the one who first delivered the box, if the codex had any known curse or attachment. He didn't answer. He just stared at me, pale and shaking, and said, "You shouldn't have spoken anything." That night, my walls bled. Not metaphorically. There were thin trails of red, viscous and warm, leaking from the corners of my ceiling. I touched it. It smelled like rust, salt and mold, like blood long buried, like something exhumed. I've tried to alert the others. No one listens. Or worse, they already know and are pretending not to. I saw one of the cardinals holding a rosary of black thorns. He stared at me with eyes like obsidian. And when he passed me, I swear he whispered the same name I'd spoken, but in reverse. I tried to leave. They wouldn't let me. They said my work was too important, that I had opened the veil, that I was marked. I'm not sure if they meant that metaphorically or literally. This morning, I looked in the mirror. The skin beneath my tongue is turning black. There are lines forming across my chest, faint and angular, like the symbols in the book. And sometimes, I think the lines move when I'm not looking. The book no longer needs to be opened. It whispers now, even closed, even locked in the safe. It calls to me. I know I should stop. I want to stop. But I keep reading. I think it knows my name now, and I don't think I was supposed to ever exist outside its pages. I keep my gloves on now. Not out of ritual, not out of cleanliness, but because the last time I touched the codex with bare skin, it bit me. Not a sharp bite, not pain, just rot. Like decay soaking through my fingertips, running beneath the nail up into the palm like ink with intent. And yet, I went back to it. There's something wrong with the lettering, something impossible. At first glance, it looks like standard ink, crude, black, maybe oxidized iron gall. But under the lab scope, it doesn't reflect light the way it should. It absorbs it, completely. And the edges, they ripple. Not as in aged paper ripple, as in muscle beneath skin ripple. I stared at it for 15 minutes without blinking. Then it blinked back. The symbol on the left corner of page 13, the one that resembles a crude trident bent inward, it shuddered. Just once. Like a dying insect curling its legs. And when I blinked again, it had moved half an inch down the page. I checked the footage, frame by frame, but there was nothing on the camera. Only my own reflection in the lens, mouth slightly open, eyes far too wide. I should have stopped then. I should have handed the book back. I should have reported it. But I didn't. Because something in me needed to know, needed to understand what kind of scriptorium could produce this kind of document. Was it mechanical, chemical, biological? The next day, I noticed my fingertips were darkening. Not bruised, not ink-stained, just graying. I tried to scrub them clean. No use, the blackness stayed. It wasn't on the skin, it was under it, like the ink had taken root, like it was spreading through me. I put on gloves, cotton at first, then nitrile, then both, but it doesn't help. Every time I turn the page, I feel it throb. Like it knows it's being read. I tested it. I prayed over it, Psalm 91, then Psalm 23. Two of the most protective verses I know by heart. And I kid you not, the ink bubbled, like it was boiling beneath the page. That's when the smell started. It wasn't strong, not at first, but familiar. Copper mildew salt. I know the scent of dried blood. The codex smelled like death. The kind buried beneath walls, ancient, pressed between stone and rot. So I confronted the priest. Father Andre. He was the one who first gave me the codex. said it was a sensitive manuscript requiring isolated study. When I told him what I saw, how the ink moves, how it hurts, he went pale. I thought maybe he was surprised, but then he said something that stuck with me ever since. You weren't supposed to open it with your eyes. I asked him what he meant. He wouldn't answer, just mumbled some nonsense in Latin, something about oculis caesis, blind eyes. Then he handed me a rosary and told me to stop reading aloud. I hadn't been. At least, I didn't think I had. But that night, when I played the CCTV footage back, the sound had been captured. Audio of me alone in the archive, speaking the letters out loud, in a voice that wasn't mine, deeper, slower, as if something was reading through me. I don't remember doing it, but my lips moved. I watched the footage 10 times. I even tried syncing the phonetics to known languages, Aramaic, Akkadian, Syriac. Nothing matched. Except for one partial phrase, Ashem Enkadish, a corrupted form of hallowed be thy name. I've been translating for 20 years. I've seen inconsistencies before. This wasn't inconsistency. This was deliberate perversion. The kind of language meant not to be read, but to infect. The day after that, my left hand went numb. 3 fingers. I went to a physician in secret. No bruising, no lesions, just dead nerves. He said it looked like necrosis, but with no physical trauma, no infection. He asked if I'd been working with chemicals. I said yes. How could I tell him the truth? That the ink wasn't ink, that it burned when I prayed, that I'd seen it move when no one was looking. And it wasn't just me. I caught one of the assistants, Brother Paolo, staring into the codex when I stepped away to get tea. His mouth hung open. His pupils were gone, just white. I shook him hard. He snapped back like a drowning man gasping for breath. He didn't say a word, just wiped his lips, they were black, and stumbled out of the archives. He hasn't come back since. I checked the codex after he left. The page he'd been staring at was blank. The ink had vanished. But that night, it reappeared on my walls. Same shapes, same symbols, crawled across the plaster like veins. I tried to wash them. They just sank deeper. I tried to cover them, the paint cracked. And when I turned off the light, they glowed. I should have called someone. The Vatican, the authorities, anyone. But I didn't. I sat there for hours, just staring at the walls, at the symbols now forming loops and lines, making words I couldn't read, but somehow understood. My name was among them. Twice. One in the corner of the ceiling, one across the mirror. I dreamt that night of parchment stretched across bone, a book made not of paper but of skin, and something writing in the dark with a finger dipped in me. And when I woke up, the black stain had spread to my wrist. I wear long sleeves now. But it doesn't matter. Because the stain isn't on me, it's inside me. And the ink. It's alive. I think it's rewriting me from the inside, and soon I won't be the one holding the pen anymore. I don't remember saying it. I wish I could tell you I meant to, that I studied the symbols first, broke them down phonetically, mapped out the syllables like I used to with Latin exorcism rites. But that would be a lie. The truth is far worse. It came out in my sleep. One night, after hours hunched over the codex, tracing its impossible curves, I collapsed face first into the pages. When I woke up, still at the desk, neck stiff, throat raw, I knew I had spoken something aloud. I could feel it, like a razor dragged along the back of my teeth. My throat wasn't just sore, it was burned. I stood up to splash water on my face and saw that my door was open. Not just unlocked, wide open. The air was cold, and the hallway light outside my apartment flickered like it does when someone's just walked past it. But I live on the 7th floor. My building has no fire escape. I double bolt the door every night. The windows don't open more than a hand's width by design. Nothing should have gotten in or out. But there it was, the door swinging gently like someone had just left, or was still standing nearby. I searched the apartment, every inch, every crevice. Nothing, but it didn't feel empty. Something had changed. That morning I went back to the codex. I told myself I needed answers, but it was more than that. I felt called, drawn. The page I'd been working on was different. There were no passages now, no paragraphs, no phrases, just a single word, one I'd never seen before. It wasn't in any language, not Hebrew, not Latin, not even the corrupted tongue I'd started to suspect the codex was written in. It wasn't written, it was grown. The word pulsed in the center of the page like a blood blister. The ink raised slightly from the parchment, like braille, almost warm to the touch through my gloves. I copied it into my notebook, not by hand, but instinctively. My wrist moved without thought. When I finished, I couldn't read what I'd written. Not then. But later I saw it again, on the bathroom mirror, in steam, in that same word. Agate. I don't know how to pronounce it, not properly. I've tried to sound it out slowly, carefully, and each time it feels like swallowing broken glass. But in my sleep, I can say it fluently. I recorded myself last night. 3 times between 2 and 4 a.m., I whisper the word. Not mutter, not mumble. Whisper with perfect pronunciation, each syllable measured like a monk delivering mass. And every time I say it, there's a pause and then a scratching sound, like something dragging nails against wood. The scratching isn't coming from the audio. It's coming from the walls of my apartment. The landlord says the building is too old to have mice, too high up for rats, but I've found claw marks under the paint, deep ones, fresh. I confronted Father Andre again, asked him if the names in the book meant anything. He went silent. Then he said, "They're not names like ours, not identifiers, they're keys." Keys to what? I asked. He looked me in the eyes, and I swear to God his pupils changed shape, just for a second. Keys that open perception, names that know you back. I haven't seen him since. His office was cleared out the next morning. The archives say he's on extended leave, but his email auto-response just says, "Do not read them. They are not for the tongue of man." But it's too late. They're in me now. I see them when I close my eyes. Black script spiraling downward like a vortex of thorns. When I try to recite anything else, prayers, hymns, even the alphabet, my tongue slips. I almost say it again. I've started biting my tongue in my sleep. Last night I woke up with blood on the pillow and a bruise on my ribs. I'm not alone here. I've started hearing voices beneath the floorboards, not whispering, chanting. They say it with me. They say it with me. This morning when I opened the codex, there were more names. Dozens. Scattered across the pages like spores, all of them pulsating, all of them familiar, though I've never seen them before. I recognized one. My father's name used to be Jonathan. It's not anymore, not on the page. On the codex, he is now a Lornath. I called him just to hear his voice. He didn't recognize mine. I'm starting to forget words. Simple ones. Chair, mirror, door. They all feel wrong when I say them. My thoughts don't start in English anymore. I think in shapes now. Angular thoughts, sharp and fluid. I woke up scribbling one this morning on my bathroom tile. I don't remember doing it, but the ink was dry and my fingertips were black again. My neighbor knocked today, said she heard someone screaming through the vents. I told her I'd been watching a film. She stared too long at my eyes. I don't think she believed me. I don't even believe me. There's a second door behind my bookshelf now. I didn't build it. I didn't buy this apartment with one. But it's there, slight outline in the plaster, barely visible. And I know it wasn't there last week. The codex is resting on my chest right now. I can feel it humming. I haven't opened it in 6 hours, but somehow I still see the pages. The names are moving again. They're rearranging. Like they're learning how to be spoken. I should have stopped when I read the first one. But now I see them everywhere, street signs, electrical static, my own handwriting. Like reality is being overwritten, one name at a time. And the worst part, I don't want to stop. Because part of me, the part that used to pray, that used to fear the dark, wants to say them all. If these names aren't human, then what does it mean that I keep finding them inside me? It's not a dream. I keep telling myself that, but the more I say it, the more I realize how false it sounds. It started 3 nights ago. I fell asleep at my desk again. Codex open, a half-drunk cup of tea gone cold beside me. When I closed my eyes, I expected the usual. Flashes of the ink, the names, maybe that low whisper that started humming behind my eardrums. But this time was different. I opened my eyes into stone. Not a room, not a cave. A corridor narrow, endless, with walls made from ancient blocks of slate and bone-colored mortar. There were no torches, no light source, but everything glowed in a dull, grey haze, as if lit from beneath the skin of the walls themselves. The light didn't fall right. Shadows pointed up. Corners bent at wrong angles. I walked forward because I couldn't turn. The space behind me was just a wall, solid and featureless, no matter how often I turned to look. And the chanting, it wasn't voices. It was breathing. Thousands of them. Shallow, wet, nasal exhales. Like something asleep just beyond the walls, dreaming in unison, and I was the one intruding. Then I stepped in something soft. I looked down, blood. Not mine. Not at first. There was a trail, thick, dark, fresh. It led around a bend I hadn't seen before because it wasn't there a moment prior. I remember thinking, this is hell, this is somewhere worse. Somewhere that hell doesn't acknowledge. I tried to run, but my body didn't respond. The corridor grew narrower as I moved. I had to hunch, then crawl. I scraped my palms and knees against rough stone. The chanting grew louder or maybe closer. I don't know how long I was in there. Time didn't pass. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Then nothing. Just the silence of being watched. I woke up on the floor of my apartment, curled in a ball beneath the kitchen table. My toenails were broken. There was gravel in the bathtub. And the blood, that was mine. Both feet were lacerated. Long, shallow scrapes along the soles like I'd been dragged barefoot through broken shale. But I live in a building with tile floors and polished wood. There's nowhere I could have picked that up. Unless I'd actually gone somewhere. Since then, every time I close my eyes for longer than a blink, I see the corridor. It's always there, just on the other side of the eyelid. I tried staying awake for 2 days straight, drank coffee until my stomach bled, bit my own tongue until I passed out from the dizziness. Still, when I woke, stone, blood, breath, the same impossible passage, the same curve in the wall that wasn't there before. I asked one of the custodians in the Vatican basement, an old man named Pietro, if he knew anything about hidden chambers or stonework. He laughed at first. Then I described the corridor. He stopped laughing. He told me the description matched an unmarked section of catacomb beneath the original necropolis, a place sealed off in the 1400s during the Inquisitor purge. No blueprints, no records, just rumors that the Black Pope had used it for namming rituals. I asked what that meant. He just looked at me and said, "They say there are places in the earth where God's voice never echoed, places older than Eden." Since then, I've stopped fighting the dreams, because I don't think they're dreams at all. Last night, I brought a piece of chalk to bed, kept it in my fist like a lifeline. When I woke up, if that word still means anything, there were symbols scrawled all over the apartment floor, in chalk, in my handwriting. But I don't remember drawing them. And here's the worst part. One of them, the largest, drawn in a perfect circle around my bed, matches a sigil on page 49 of the codex, a page I hadn't reached yet, a page I hadn't even opened. Until now. I flipped to it this morning. The symbol was there, but this time it moved. I watched it rotate slowly, like the iris of an eye adjusting to light, and in its center was a line of text. Qui ambulat in somnis, ambulat in carne. He who walks in sleep, walks in flesh. What does that mean? Am I physically going there? Or is something else walking in my place? There's another change, a terrible one. My left eye sees differently now. I noticed it when I glanced at a crucifix. I used to feel peace or at least guilt. But now, with my left eye open, I feel pressure, like the image is wrong, inverted, blasphemy wrapped in disguise. When I look at the codex with both eyes, the pages blur. But when I close my right and use only the left, the letters sharpen, the symbols glow faintly, the names whisper back. I didn't ask for this. I just wanted to be forgiven, to be of use again. I thought if I translated one more document, followed one more order from the church, I could crawl out from under the weight of what I did in Istanbul. But now, I don't think this book can be translated. I think it translates you, piece by piece. Every name, every phrase, every dream, they're chiseling away at me, carving something beneath my skin, etching corridors into my mind, just like the ones I walk through every night. This morning I found sand in my teeth, grey, coarse, bitter. I don't know where it came from. But I do know what I heard just before I woke up. A voice behind the wall, raspy, hollow, smiling, whispering. The door is almost ready. If this place is hell, then where does the road lead when even hell dares not follow? I wasn't supposed to know about the chamber. Even among the Vatican's deepest records, it's spoken of only in hushed Latin euphemisms, locus damnati scripturae, the place of the damned scripture. A room buried beneath sub-basement 3, behind a sealed stairwell that doesn't appear on any architectural plan drawn after 1611. They say it was walled off during the Black Fire Purge, when a monk screamed a name and 5 of his brothers died without ever being touched. I found it because of a whisper, not from the codex, this time from a man. Giovanni. He's a night guard, small, nervous eyes. Always keeps his rosary hidden behind his ID tag. We'd never spoken before, but last week, while I was walking out of the reading vault at 2 a.m., he leaned in without looking at me and said, "There's a room beneath the crypt where mirrors don't reflect." That was all. No introduction, no follow-up. He just said it and walked off. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning I found him again, bribed him with silence and a bottle of Chianti older than both of us. He took it without a word, scribbled something on a post-it note and slid it across the desk. Stone corridor, 2 torches, Latin phrase, qui speculo caret, carnem retinet, don't turn around once you speak it. I followed it that night. And I swear to God, there was a door I'd never seen before, just a slab of dark marble nestled in the bricks. No handle, no seal, just an inscription at shoulder height, half faded. Verbum intra, veritas cadit. The word enters, truth falls. I recited Giovanni's phrase under my breath. There was no sound. No shifting of stone, no grind of mechanisms. But suddenly the slab was gone. Not open, not broken, just gone. Behind it was a stairwell choked in dust and silence. I counted 34 steps, each one colder than the last. The walls wept condensation that smelled like sulfur and spoiled milk. By the time I reached the bottom, my skin felt 3 degrees too cold and my thoughts weren't my own. It wasn't fear, not yet. It was recognition. Like my body remembered something my soul did not. The chamber was circular, not large, maybe the size of a cathedral baptistery, but every wall, floor to ceiling, was lined with mirrors. Old, tarnished, covered in dust and rot. I stepped inside and turned slowly. None of them reflected me. Not a single one. I waved my hand, blinked, leaned close. Nothing. But they showed something else. Shadows, shapes, movement. I swear this is true, I saw the codex lying open on a black stone pedestal, pages flipping on their own. A figure standing beside it, tall, faceless, with arms too long and fingers curled like thorns. When I turned around, the pedestal was in the center of the room, just like in the mirrors. And on top of it, nothing, except a single black feather. Long, ragged, still wet at the end. It looked like it had been ripped out rather than fallen. I reached for it, but my hand froze halfway. Not out of fear, out of instinct. Something in me screamed not to touch it, like a buried gene pulling my muscles tight. So instead, I bent to look at the altar's surface. There was writing there, scratched deep into the obsidian slab. He will return if you keep reading. No signature, no context. Just those words, carved by someone who knew. I backed away slowly. My foot brushed something soft. I looked down and nearly screamed. A collar. Monk's robes. Still damp. No body. Just the collar and a severed tongue. Old, withered, black with rot, laid neatly on a cloth square beneath the mirror. And beside it, a page. Codex parchment, the real kind. Different from the manuscript I had upstairs, but of the same flesh-colored vellum. This page was blank, until I picked it up. As soon as I touched it, wearing gloves, mind you, the ink poured in, from nowhere, like veins swelling beneath translucent skin, and in less than 3 seconds, the page was filled with names. Mori names. But they weren't written in order. They spiraled outward from the center like a vortex, and in the middle of the page, one word repeated. Adveniat, adveniat, adveniat. He will come, he will come, he will come. I dropped the page. It didn't fall. It stuck to the air. Just hovered there, spinning slowly, like caught in invisible fluid. And from the mirrors, from every single one, I began to hear whispering. The same whisper, spoken by 1,000 mouths that weren't mine. It said my name. Over and over. Until one voice, said it backwards. I turned and ran. I didn't care about the stairwell, about protocol. I sprinted all 34 steps, felt something cold brush my spine, and didn't look back once. When I reached the marble slab again, it was already sealed. No seam. Just stone. And behind it, silence. I was alone in the corridor. But I was. I could feel something staring at me from the mirrors, from beneath the feather I left behind, from inside me. The codex is different now. The page I saw in the mirror, the one that flipped on its own. It's open to it now, and the name at the top of that page. It's mine, but not in Latin. In something older. Something written in reverse geometry, like the letters were meant to be read through reflection. I held the page up to a mirror just to test it. My reflection blinked. I didn't. The mirrors still won't show me, but whatever's behind them knows exactly what I've done. There's a rule among translators: never rush a page you don't understand. I broke it. I was tired, frustrated. My hands were trembling, and my eyes strung from the strain of reading that thing for too long. I flipped a section too quickly, trying to get past the clinging names, and that's when I saw it, the blank page. Perfectly blank, a rarity in the codex. No pulsating ink, no shifting symbols, no whispered syllables gnawing at the edges of comprehension. Just flesh-colored vellum stretched tight across the spine, pulseless and still. I should have left it. But I didn't. I hovered there, fingertips grazing the edges. My gloves were damp from sweat, and the codex seemed to respond to it. The fibers in the page twitched, like they were tasting me. I didn't mean to press so hard, I swear, but the corner of the page gave way, and I felt a sudden sharpness beneath my thumbnail. A paper cut, thin, clean, but deep. Blood dripped onto the blank page before I could even curse. And the page drank. It absorbed the drop like parched soil in drought. Then another. My pulse quickened. I tried to grab tissue, but something stopped me. I don't know if it was will or something else, something external. The pain in my finger dulled, replaced with heat that radiated into my palm. And then the page wasn't blank anymore. At first, just one line appeared, centered, dark red, written in the same impossible language, except I could read it. Not phonetically, not symbolically. I understood it, like it had always been there, behind my eyes, waiting to be remembered. It was my name, but not the one my mother gave me. This one was older. It vibrated in my chest. I spoke it aloud before I knew I was moving my lips. Maresh. The word tasted like iron and old wood, like breath stolen from a sealed crypt. And in that instant, something bled up from the page, not ink, not paint, something alive. Thin lines of red-black script spidered upward, curling toward my wrist, my forearm. The codex stayed open, trembling as the lines reached my skin and entered. Through the cut. It didn't hurt, it settled, like it had been waiting for a wound. I ran to the sink, scrubbed until I bled again. Nothing came off. The lines weren't on my skin, they were beneath it, like veins of text, pulsing with a rhythm slightly out of sync with my heart. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. The codex stayed open on the desk, as if mocking me, the page still wet, still humming. And then came the reflection. Around 3:12 a.m., I wandered to the bathroom, not sure why. The hallway light was off. The apartment felt wrong, heavy, like gravity was denser around me. I turned on the bathroom light. I didn't move, but my reflection did. It stood still for a second, a perfect mirror. Then, slowly, it smiled. I swear to you, I didn't smile. Then its lips moved. I couldn't hear anything, but I knew what it said. It whispered that name. Maresh. Again and again, slowly, mouth wide, like unhinging a jaw to let something climb out. I backed away, but the reflection didn't. It leaned forward, pressing against the glass, as if the mirror were water and it was almost through. Then it vanished. Just gone. The mirror was empty for exactly 5 seconds. I counted. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I was back. Or at least, my reflection was. But I couldn't be sure anymore if it was me. That morning I checked the codex. The page was gone. Not turned, gone. There was a blank space in the manuscript, like a rib removed from a skeleton. A sudden void where the page should have been, no torn edge, no sign of removal. Just absence. And the lines beneath my skin had multiplied. They now reached my elbow. At this rate, they'll reach my neck by the end of the week. I started noticing other things, too. My shadow flickers when I speak the name. It stretches in the wrong direction. The lights don't dim, but they flicker inside my head, like something is blinking in reverse. I tested it. I stood in front of the mirror again and whispered, Maresh. My reflection jerked, just for a moment, and then opened its mouth wide. Wider. Wider than should be possible. Something moved behind its tongue. I shut off the light, broke the mirror, didn't care about the shards. I had to stop looking. Because the reflection wasn't me anymore. It was waiting for me to say the name again, louder, with faith. Like a summoning. The Vatican won't take my calls. My access to the archives has been restricted. Someone left an envelope on my doorstep this morning with only one sentence. You've been chosen as a vessel. Stop speaking. I burned it. Not out of defiance, out of fear, because I'm not sure who wrote it, or if they were warning me or jealous. The codex page is still gone. But now, every time I blink, I see it in negative space, burned into my retina. The name pulses behind my eyes like a tumor that wants to be heard. I'm not just reading the codex anymore. It's reading me. If my name is in the book, does that mean I was written before I was born? He broke in without setting off the locks. No broken window, no tampered latch. He was just there, sitting in the chair across from my desk when I got home from the archives. The apartment smelled like sulfur and wet parchment. The codex had been left open. I never leave it open. And he was staring straight at it, eyes hollow, collar undone, red silk trembling against his throat. Cardinal Bastian Morello. I'd seen him once before, years ago, during my probationary banishment after Istanbul. He'd passed me in the lower cloister and never spoke a word. But that night, in my apartment, he wouldn't stop speaking. Not at first. He stood slowly. His movements were stiff, like his bones didn't belong to him anymore. How far into the codex are you? He asked. I said nothing. He stepped closer. His eyes were rimmed in yellow. His lips were cracked and bleeding. Has it written you in yet? I didn't answer. He nodded, like that was the answer. Then it's too late, but you can still choose how you end. He looked around the apartment, like he expected to see eyes in the walls. Every century it picks a vessel, not a reader, not a scholar, a vessel. That's the word it uses. You're not translating it, you're carrying it, birthing it. His voice cracked. And when it's ready, it'll leave you, like a snake shedding its skin, but you won't be dead. He turned to the codex. You'll be missing. He sat again, hands trembling, breath catching in shallow wheezes. In 1611, the last vessel tried to destroy it, burned the chamber, drowned himself in the holy cistern. It didn't work. The book was waiting when we returned, bone dry, pages open, smiling. I felt cold then, a deep internal chill that gripped my ribs and made my spine itch. I asked him why he was telling me this. He laughed, hollow, humorless. Because I was supposed to be next, but I ran. He pulled up his sleeve. His arm was covered in scars, concentric rings of text etched in by blade, old and faded, some fresh. I recognized the symbols. I'd seen them on the page where my name had appeared. He tried to take it into himself, and failed. It doesn't want cowards, he whispered. He stood, staggering toward the codex. But it wants you. I saw your name months ago. I prayed it was someone else. But now. He turned to me, tears falling freely down his cheeks. Burn it, please, before it finishes the transcription, before it leaves you hollow. He grabbed my shoulders, tighter than a dying man should have strength for. I've heard it in the walls for years. I've moved 10 times, changed names, starved myself. It still finds me. And now it's whispering through you. I pulled away, terrified. He stared at me like a condemned man, watching the gallows being built. If you won't destroy it, then at least bury it, somewhere far, where no one will ever. He stopped. His eyes went wide, and he looked to the corner of the room. He's here. I turned nothing, just shadow. But when I turned back, he was gone. The door was still closed, but the chair was empty. It took the church 3 hours to call me. They said he jumped from the North Bell Tower. No note, no speech, just climbed the railing during Vespers and stepped off. The fall shattered every bone. His blood painted the cobblestones like a sigil. They ruled it a confession of internal guilt. But I know better, because I broke into his personal chamber that night. I had to. His room was lined with salt, real salt, thick and coarse, sprinkled in rings around every threshold. His mirror had been shattered, every shard individually wrapped in cloth. And on his desk was a journal. Most pages had been torn out. All but one. The final page. 7 words, scribbled in frantic, blood-smeared ink. He's in the walls. He's hungry again. I didn't sleep that night. The walls in my apartment creaked. Not from age or wind. I've lived here long enough to know the difference. This was intentional, rhythmic. Like breathing. And when I turned off the lights, I heard scratching. Soft, inching closer. Then a sound like chewing, low, wet, slow. I turned on the light, silence. The next day, the codex flipped open on its own. I know how that sounds, but it's true. I locked it in a steel chest. No light, no air. When I opened the box, the pages were halfway turned. And there, dead center, was another name I recognized. Morello. It had already written him in. I think that's what he meant by transcription. It's not recording us, it's absorbing us, turning us into scripture. I should have burned it. I should have done what he begged me to do. But instead, I read the next page, and there was room for one more name. Mine. I used to think the walls kept things out, but now I know they were built to keep something in. I left Rome 2 days ago, or at least I thought I had. The train ticket says Florence. The motel key says room 6, Casa Benedetto Inn, but something about the journey feels fractured, like I was carried instead of transporting, like the hours between the archives and this cheap, yellow-lit room have been surgically removed from my memory. I keep finding smudges on my suitcase, not from handling or dirt, but fingerprints. Thin, coal-black marks in trios, 3 fingers, pressed tightly, repeated over the handle. The receptionist looked at me strangely when I checked in. He handed me a key, then held out a small red Gideon Bible. Complimentary, standard issue, crisp, unread. But when I held it, I felt something pulse. Just once, subtle, like a shiver in the spine of the book. I didn't open it until midnight. I was lying in bed, trying not to think about the last time the codex flipped itself open, or how Morello's name had appeared after his death. I wasn't looking for answers, just silence, some small, safe ritual to pretend things were still normal. So I flipped to Psalms, and then I saw it. It wasn't obvious at first. The print looked normal, 10-point Times New Roman, like every motel Bible I've ever leafed through. But the spacing between the verses felt off, slightly too tight, as if the letters had been compressed to make room for something else. Then, between Psalm 91 and 92, I saw it. A sliver of ink, not black, but an oily crimson, like dried wine and rot. A name. Not in any language this Bible was printed in. Not Latin, not Hebrew. Codex script. I blinked. It was gone. I turned the page. There it was again, wedged into the gutter between Proverbs 3, 5 and 3, 6, smaller than a comma, only visible if I tilted the page toward the yellow motel light. Another name. I whispered it before I could stop myself. And the air changed. The temperature dropped 3 degrees. The curtains fluttered without a breeze. The overhead fan began to spin, even though the chain was wrapped around the motor and I'd never touched the switch. I closed the Bible and ran to the bathroom. Threw cold water on my face. Looked up. My reflection was mouthing something. I couldn't hear it, but I knew what it was. I checked the spine of the Bible. No codex stamp. No Vatican seal. Just a plain Gideon cross. But it didn't matter. The ink had spread. I grabbed a penlight, a magnifier, and opened the book page by page, holding each one up to the light like a madman looking for ghosts in watermarks. And they were everywhere. Tucked into margins. Layered beneath footnotes. Disguised in flourishes of capital letters, almost calligraphic, but not quite. You'd never see them, unless you knew what to look for, unless you'd read the original. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just a curse. It was a contagion. A mimetic virus, embedded in the framework of belief, riding the scaffolding of Scripture to cross linguistic barriers and theological borders. Not a book anymore. A vector. I stayed up all night running tests. I compared a digital copy of the same Gideon Bible against what I'd found. Nothing on the PDF. The file was clean. But when I printed a page from that file, just Proverbs 3, the same oily red mark bled through the paper an hour later. I never typed it. I never copied it. The name appeared on its own. Like it had followed the words. Like it had nested in the language itself. I ran outside at sunrise. Threw the Gideon copy into a trash bin near the chapel at the end of the street. 5 minutes later, a street preacher walked past me holding a Bible in his hands. Not the same one, a different copy, different cover. But as he shouted verses into the empty square, I heard him say a phrase that chilled my blood. And in his hidden name, he shall walk. That phrase doesn't exist. Not in Psalms, not in any gospel I know. I checked. Nothing. He wasn't quoting Scripture. He was quoting something else that sounded like Scripture. That's how it spreads. Familiarity. It wears the skin of sacred text and burrows into the minds of those who trust it most. How many people have already spoken the names without realizing it? How many translations are now carriers? I went back to my room, trembling. Opened my notebook. And I saw it had changed. There were new pages. I didn't put them there. Names scrawled in the margins. Margins I never wrote in. Some I recognized from the codex. Some I recognized from my dreams. One name in the dead center of the page had been circled in ash-colored graphite. Dominicus Marrow. My grandfather. Dead for 20 years. A missionary, burned in a remote church fire in southern Chile. The official report said lightning, but we always wondered why his body was found inside the baptismal font, kneeling, hands missing. He used to carry a small New Testament with him. I still have it. I opened it, heart pounding. The back page had a bookmark. Pressed in the crease was a name. One I've only ever seen in the codex. Agrizehel. My grandfather had seen it, read it, carried it, and now it's carried me. That's why I was chosen. The bloodline isn't metaphor, it's literal. The codex doesn't just spread through language, it spreads through lineage, through memory, through faith. If it's in Gideon Bibles, it could be in anything now, the Quran, the Torah, the Vedas, anywhere sacred words live, anywhere the idea of trust survives. It doesn't care what God you believe in. It only cares that you believe. Because belief is the door, and names are the key. If Scripture is the vessel, then every prayer we whisper might be feeding something we were never meant to wake. There are certain places the church lets decay on purpose. The cathedral ruins outside Pelstrina are one of them. Not closed, not demolished, just forgotten. The guidebooks don't mention them. The maps have no coordinates. But the altar stone remains, blackened and cracked, and the statues of the saints are all missing their faces, not weathered, scraped. Hollow sockets where divinity used to be. I wasn't looking for anyone. I was just drawn there. The codex had stopped whispering names 2 days ago, but the silence was worse, like the lull between birth and breath. And when I reached the edge of the ruins, someone was already waiting. He sat cross-legged on the broken steps beneath the shattered rose window, naked from the waist up, body covered in deep black sigils, not tattoos, not ink, raised, scarred into the flesh like burn marks shaped by intention. No teeth, no eyelids. His mouth never closed. His eyes never blinked. He stared into the sun without flinching, as if light meant nothing anymore. I should have run. But he looked directly at me and said, "You spoke it." His voice was dry, reedy, like wind through a dead pipe organ. I froze. He didn't ask which name. He knew. "It's in you now," he rasped. "I can smell it." I asked him who he was. He smiled, or tried to. Without lips, it was just tension in the jaw. "Once I was a monk like you, translator. I held the codex in 1883. He reached into the dirt beside him and pulled up something buried, a rosary made of teeth. Human by the look of them, each worn smooth. It speaks the same name to each of us, but it means something different every time. I stepped closer. My hands trembled. "I thought it was just ink," I whispered. He laughed, a hissing, rasping cough of laughter that made blood bubble at the corners of his mouth. "It's not ink, it's echo. It bleeds from what came before language, before the word." He leaned forward. "The name you spoke, it opened you. You see things now, don't you?" I nodded. He gestured toward the cathedral ruins. "Would you like to see more?" I should have said no. But I didn't. He stood without using his hands, his spine curved too far back, like something that had forgotten how to mimic humans properly. "Follow." We walked into the nave. The stones pulsed beneath my feet. I heard whispers again, but not from the codex. From the walls. From the mortar. From the bones that once held up psalms and choirs and incense. "The name unlocks perception," he muttered. "Lets you see what walked before Adam, before Eden, before there was man." I asked what that meant. He turned to me, and his voice dropped an octave. "You think we were the first." He gestured to the mural above the altar, a faded Last Supper, except all the faces had been blacked out with soot. There were others, not angels, not demons, just first. He stepped up onto the altar. "When you spoke the name, you invited them back. And then, I swear to you, the world went silent. No birds. No wind. Even the sound of my own breath stopped reaching my ears. He began whispering something, not to me, to the space around him. To the space beneath us. The sigils on his chest began to glow, dim red, like embers inside flesh. He opened his mouth wider than any human jaw should stretch, and from inside it came a sound I can only describe as memory. Not noise, not language, just the feeling of something ancient waking. The cathedral shuddered. Dust fell from the rafters. And then I saw it. Not with my eyes, not exactly. Mori-like between the blinks. A shape, towering, headless, limbs that dragged behind it like shadows, eyes all over its chest, all blinking in perfect synchronicity. It didn't stand in the ruins. It was the ruins. The shape of the architecture itself. It had been disguised as a building. I fell to my knees. The man turned to me. You see now. I could barely speak. He stepped down. The Codex isn't a book, it's a blueprint for remaking perception, for cracking the seal between now and before. He pulled something from behind the altar. A page, ripped from the Codex, still wet. He held it out to me. I refused. He stepped closer. You already said the name. You must finish it. I backed away, but I heard my own voice behind me. My own voice. Whispering. Repeating. Marish, Agrizehel, Marish, Agrizehel. The echo of my own invocation. The sound of myself betraying me. I turned and ran. I don't remember how I got back to the motel. My clothes were soaked in salt water. My feet were bruised, and the rosary made of teeth was on my pillow, though I never touched it. I looked in the mirror. My eyelids didn't blink. For 3 full minutes. I had to force them shut. The Codex is still in my bag. But now, when I touch it, I feel warmth. Like breath against skin. Like something inside, waiting to be born again. He said the name was perception, but all I see now is what watches back. I thought fire would be enough. It's supposed to be the end of all things, isn't it? A cleansing, a final act. Even the church agrees fire is how you kill heresy, how you purge sin, how you close doors. But the Codex doesn't close. I lit the first match at 3:33 a.m. That's when the whispering usually starts, soft at first, like rustling pages, then louder, closer, until it feels like breath against my eardrums, saying names I haven't read yet, names I know I'll become if I wait too long. So I poured holy oil across the cover, not just any oil, the same used in Vatican ordinations. I bought it from a priest I once studied under. I told him it was for ritual cleansing. He didn't ask what kind. Then I placed the Codex in the sink, lit the match, and dropped it. For 1 perfect second, there was silence. No chanting, no movement. Just flame, beautiful, rising, honest. And then it screamed. Not aloud. Inside my head. A high, splitting shriek that bypassed my ears and went straight into my spine. Like glass shattering behind my eyes, I fell. I bit my tongue. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. But when I looked again, the fire was gone. So was the oil. The sink was bone dry. And the Codex untouched. Still open to the last page I dared to read. I stepped closer, and something moved beneath the parchment. It wasn't ink, not anymore. It was a membrane, shifting, translucent, almost wet. The surface shimmered like old glass, but I couldn't see my reflection. Not at first. Then the angle shifted. And there it was. My face. But not the one I wear in the mirror. This one was older, pale, eyes black, mouth moving silently. At first I thought it was mouthing the usual names, but then I leaned closer, and I realized it was saying something different. My name. Over and over. Except not the name I was born with. The other one. The one I bled into the page. Maresh. Over and over again. I shouted. I slammed the book shut. I wrapped it in a bedsheet, tied it in rope, placed it under the motel's mini fridge, and stacked furniture on top of it like a madman trying to bury guilt with weight. It didn't help. The chanting didn't stop. The walls began to twitch. That's the only way I can describe it. They twitched, like skin under pressure. I peeled back a strip of wallpaper and found veins running through the plaster. They pulsed in rhythm with my heartbeat. I collapsed in the corner, weeping. And then I heard it. Not through the codex. From inside me. A single line. The ink remembers. The voice wasn't mine. It was woven through my breath, riding my thoughts like a parasite that had learned my language. I looked down at my arms. The script beneath my skin, the one that had spread from my fingertip, now covered my entire torso. The symbols weren't dormant anymore. They were moving, crawling, rewriting. I ran into the bathroom and stripped. What I saw in the mirror wasn't a man. It was a manuscript. A living one. Every inch of flesh was covered in names. Some I'd read, some I'd spoken, some that hadn't appeared in the codex yet, but the biggest shock. There was a spine drawn across my own. A binding. Like I was being folded, page by page, into a shape meant to be read. I tried to speak, but only syllables came out. Fragments of languages that don't belong in the mouth of a human. I looked back into the mirror. My eyes had changed. No pupils. Just black spirals. And behind me in the glass, just for a split second, I saw the altar again. The one in the sealed chamber. With the single black feather. Except now, it had two feathers. One laid freshly across the stone. I haven't left the room since. I think I'm becoming the codex. Not metaphorically. Literally. I caught my reflection blinking out of sync again. I stopped trying to correct it. My left hand no longer responds to me. It turns pages I haven't opened. Earlier today, I blacked out. When I woke, I was standing in the motel hallway, speaking aloud. A woman in room 5 had opened her door. She was staring at me, transfixed. Mouth open. And when I stopped speaking, she dropped to her knees and began scribbling on the carpet with her own fingernails. Writing names. They've taken her now. But not to a hospital. To a church. I called. They said she kept repeating a phrase over and over again. He's almost finished. The pages are binding. God forgive me. I think I'm the final chapter. I opened the codex one last time. The last page is different. It's not parchment. It's glass. Polished, silvered, reflective, but wrong. It doesn't show the room. It only shows me. No matter what angle I hold it at. And in it my mouth moves, always one step ahead of my thoughts. It's still whispering that name. Over and over. But now there's a second voice. And a third. And a fourth. It's building. Like a congregation. Like a choir. Every name I ever spoke. Every syllable I whispered. They're coming together. To summon something. Something that's been waiting for centuries to speak again, through a living page. Through a binding made of flesh. I should have burned it. But the truth is, it burned me first. The codex doesn't need to be written anymore, because now I'm the one turning the pages from inside.